Welcome to The Verdict, Kent Meyers and Mick Cornett. Glad to see you again here on The Verdict. Mick, how have you been in this time of interruption?
Well, it's been an interesting time. A lot of meetings just like this show, using technology instead of doing things in person. It's a different world we're surviving in right now.
Well, it is indeed. And we've got a really good guest today. Dr. Deborah Shropshire is going to be with us. Talking about her work at the Department of Human Services.
And we will get to that show right after this break. You're watching The Verdict. Glad you joined us.
I have found my passion in history by encouraging other students to learn about their own history as well. My name is Ellen Brooker. I'm a social studies teacher, and I am Chickasaw. I'm very passionate about teaching about my heritage and being Native American because I want students to look at their heritage to understand that what's in the textbooks is just perspective. It is everything that is cut down to fit into one book, and it doesn't tell the whole story. It's so wonderful when you see the light bulb go on and they actually get it, and they're excited and I'm excited, and it makes all the difficult days worthwhile.
See more stories about the Chickasaw people at profilesofanation.com.
When I came to work for the ODVA, I started realizing the opportunity to take care of veterans. It's a powerful thing when you realize that you are taking care of people that made history.
Working here is a calling. It's really, really important that they don't just come here to exist. We want to give them meaning to their lives. We try to make life happy and meaningful and fulfilled for our veterans.
And welcome back to The Verdict, Kent Meyers and Mick Cornett.
It's great to be here on the virtual edition. Kent, why don't you go ahead and introduce our first guest?
I would be glad to. She's a longtime friend, Dr. Deborah Shropshire from Department of Human Services. She is the Child Welfare Director. She has her MD and MHA degrees. She is a pediatrician, has served for a number of years at the Oklahoma Med Center and at Children's Hospital. In 2019, she was named the director of DHS Child Welfare Division. Dr. Shropshire, we have entitled this show, What You Don't Know Can Hurt You, but we certainly want to welcome you to talk to us about what you're doing out at DHS.
Well, thank you. It's a pleasure to be with you, and especially with you two gentlemen who I have deep respect and admiration for. So thank you for having me on the show.
Well, you're kind. You're obviously a first-time guest if you have that type of admiration for us.
We'll straighten that out pretty quickly.
I know you've made a change from Children's Hospital to DHS. Kind of give us some of the background that led to that change.
Yeah, a lot of people sort of say, what's your career path, or how did that career trajectory work? And it can sound a little bit abrupt, but it actually is a lot longer journey. When I was in medical school, I always grew up wanting to be a physician, but when I was in medical school, really fell in love with kids in foster care that I was encountering kind of through that training. but not just the kids or the medical aspect of child abuse or child welfare, but actually really fell in love with the system, with the caseworkers that are advocating for kids, with the community advocates, with foster parents. I mean, I think it's amazing that there's people in our state who welcome other children into their homes and take care of them like their own for a period of time. But I also actually fell in love with the families who are struggling and whose children wind up in the foster care system. So I found myself in a unique position of training to be a physician and loving medicine, but really also loving the social systems around child maltreatment. And so I had the opportunity over a number of years to serve alongside child welfare staff, initially in the medical space, training and seeing kiddos who were in foster care in a couple of different clinic spaces. And then over time around policy development and things like that with the Department of Human Services. And about almost 6 years ago now, I had the opportunity to come on to the child welfare leadership team as a deputy director, doing community partnerships. So I was still practicing as a physician part of the time, but really spending a lot of my time with child welfare, trying to help community partners connect to the mission of the Department of Human Services, and specifically that mission as it relates to children and families, and was really, really honored to have the opportunity to step into this role, the child welfare director role, almost exactly a year ago, actually.
Well, tell us a little bit about what your duties are now that you're child welfare director.
Yeah, so child welfare is one part of the work that the Department of Human Services does. There are many parts. We serve many different groups of vulnerable citizens across the state of Oklahoma, but child welfare is the largest division within the Department of Human Services. And so I have the responsibility and also the pleasure of serving 3,000 of our state employees and leading a large army of advocates who are trying very hard to keep kids safe, but also at the same time to serve families and help strengthen families so that kids maybe don't need to come into foster care at all, but even if they do, that we can swiftly strengthen their families and move those kids back home. Or if that's not going to be possible, that we help those children move into a new family. The state itself doesn't need to be a long-term parent. What we really need to do is assist those families on both sides in terms of taking care of and raising children. So I get to lead that mission with a wonderful team of 3,000 employees and great leadership at our agency at the Department of Human Services.
What are some of the more common medical issues that a child in the foster system or in DHS custody might be facing?
Yeah, that's a great question. It's funny because I think that the intersection of health, public health and social services is actually a perfect one. And so even though it may be a little bit of an unusual career path for a physician, the truth is, I think actually child welfare could benefit from having more folks from healthcare in the space. And the reason I say that is a couple of things. One is that we've known for a long time that children who are bumping into foster care systems have much higher rates of disease, all different kinds of disease, than other children do. And that goes for things that you might sort of expect, such as situations that come from maybe child maltreatment, from living in unsafe conditions. So kids who may be underweight, who don't have access to quality food, or kids who may be exposed to unsafe living environments, or even to physical abuse or things like that. So that's not surprising, but it's interesting. Those kiddos also have a lot higher rates of things like asthma and other kinds of normal childhood diseases. And part of the explanation of that probably really has to do with a couple of things. One, having steady quality access to healthcare and sort of getting your healthcare needs met. But part of it is probably also related to the stress that kids are under and families are under. Over the last 10 or 20 years, the field of medicine as well as the field of social work have come to understand a lot more about the effects of trauma on your mind, but also on your body. And really that certain kinds of trauma, especially those traumas that are related to certain family factors, whether it's, again, abuse or risk related to that, or whether it's things like having parents who are struggling with untreated mental illness or untreated substance use or domestic violence or things like that. All of those factors put a lot of stress on families and on children. And that stress plays out in terms of the physical health of children. And so we understand now in the field of medicine that if you have a very stressful childhood related to some of that family dysfunction, you can actually have higher rates of normal, what we would consider sort of normal medical diseases, simply because of the stress on your body. So there is this kind of interesting intersection between health and social work that happens around the issue of trauma. Now, it's kind of a unique time right now because I feel very fortunate to be in this role during this COVID pandemic. Who would have ever thought we'd be trying to deal with child welfare in the middle of a public health crisis? So that's another layer. But even aside from that, the health needs of children who bump into the foster care system are greater than their peers because of the trauma and the childhood stress that they're under.
Deb, we have just about 1 minute left before we have to take a break. Just briefly tell our viewers how many kids are in care now, and how is that number going up or down?
Yeah, we have about 7,800 children that are under the responsibility of the Department of Human Services. That number has trended down now since about 2014, where we kind of maxed out for this season at somewhere around 12,000 kids. I will tell you, of those 7,800, some number of them are in their the home that will adopt them, and some number of them are actually back home with their parents. So not all of those children are in foster homes right now, but about 6,000 of those children are currently in a foster home or some other kind of state placement at this time.
All right, well, we'll get to a break. Thank you for coming on, Deb. We'll have more with Deb right after this.
Thank you.
OU Law has a history and heritage that are unparalleled. At the University of Oklahoma College of Law, we empower our students to pursue the career of their dreams. We have the highest U.S. News ranking ever achieved by an Oklahoma law school. We are the first law school in the country to launch a college-wide digital initiative. And this year, our competition teams rank number 2 in the nation. OU Law, generations of excellence, limitless possibilities.
The good life comes naturally to Tulsa, where nature's beauty is matched with an eye for aesthetics. A legacy of neighborhoods graced with lawns and landscaping and handsome homes. A place that seems to have patented an ideal lifestyle. Bank First is loyal to the quality of life Tulsa assures its citizens, to the priority placed on education, culture, and growth. Loyal to builders who transform raw land into residential charm. Developers who see opportunity and add vitality to Tulsa's economy. Bank First serves both enterprise and private lives that need a loyal partner. It's how we help nurture this city's very good life. Bank First. Loyal to Oklahoma. Loyal to you.
And welcome back to The Verdict. Kent Meyers and Mick Cornett visiting with the Child Welfare Director of the state of Oklahoma, Dr. Deborah Shropshire, physician. Mick, where would you like to go from here?
Well, Deb, there's a lot of information on kids that are in the DHS system. And I was just wondering during this time of the virus and how the DHS interaction on home visits has been affected. And are the statistics skewed at some point down the line, or do you feel like we'll be able to rely on them going down the line?
Yeah, so I think it's a great question. And so let me unpack just a little bit of how our kind of operation, our normal operation has changed during COVID. Like many other organizations and businesses, we've had to make some significant shifts in our normal way of doing things. So a normal way that child welfare might operate would be to receive phone calls from citizens who are concerned about the safety of children, to go out and face-to-face talk with and visit those children, families, the folks who may have concerns. For children who are in the foster care system, our normal operation would be to go out and make face-to-face visits with foster parents in those foster homes, or to make sure that parents and children were seeing each other regularly. When you suddenly are faced with a public health crisis that says, really in effect, we need everyone to be still and quit visiting so many people, which is what we were all sort of told to do. I mean, as a whole state and a country, trying to figure out how to do that normal child welfare operation in that setting was a real challenge. And so in mid-March, when COVID became a much more of a reality to Oklahoma, we pretty quickly identified those types of work that we felt like still required a face-to-face encounter to be safe, and in particular around initial investigations where we've got a real concern about whether a child's safe in their home, that going out and seeing that child and visiting with that family and understanding the environment was going to be necessary, but that there might be other visit types, such as visiting in a foster home with the child or things like that, that we might be able to figure out how to do remotely, at least for a period of time. So we pivoted pretty quickly toward getting our staff equipped to be able to work from home, as well as to work through media like this, through video chats and things like that, both to visit those children in foster homes, as well as to encourage parents and children to visit each other through video. And we did that so that we could keep as many people still and sort of from contacting so many other folks in the community as possible. The upside of that is I think we were contributors to the effort to flatten a curve and to see that the pandemic didn't have as big an effect on Oklahoma as what it may otherwise have had. The other side of that, however, is when you have children you're responsible for, that you're not able to actually physically go and see as frequently as you would have in the past, you do have concerns about kind of how things are going. One of the biggest concerns we have is that the number of phone calls coming into our system that from citizens saying, hey, I'm worried about this child's safety, has really declined. We've seen that decline by about 45% over our normal number of calls to our hotline. And that's actually true nationwide. I've been on calls with a number of other child welfare directors in other states. Everyone is seeing that. A lot of that decline is attributed to kids not being in school, because often it's teachers who may have an experience where they express or are expressing to us a concern about child safety. And it's also coming from a decrease in children who are attending daycare, which is another location where, in a sense, there's another set of community eyes on a child and family who can then let us know if they have concerns about child safety or about how a family's doing. So in losing the fact that children are not really out in the community in the normal places that they were just 3 months ago, in a sense, the number of calls coming to us expressing concerns went way down. Everybody went to their own homes and kind of holed up. And we needed to do that for the public health side. The flip side of that is it's hard then for us to identify when families have extra stress and when that stress may play out as child maltreatment. So we don't think that the number of calls that are coming into our hotline is an accurate reflection of what's happening in our community, but it's the only thing we have to, at least for right now, to be able to indicate to us we should get involved with a family. So we take those calls very seriously. We've been continuing to go out face-to-face and investigate and interact with those families, try to figure out what we can do to help them. But I think we're going to have to imagine, we've been imagining we're going to have even more community support around imagining how to strengthen families in times like this, especially if we see COVID kind of continue to cycle. We also are preparing for the next phase of this, which may be a time when people come back out, kids go back to school and go back to daycare, and suddenly we have a lot of calls come flooding in from people who are now expressing concern. So we feel like this could be a little bit of a calm before a busy season, so we're preparing for that busy season. But I'm also not satisfied just kind of sitting back and waiting. We want to be very proactive about supporting and strengthening families so that hopefully we could actually somehow be a help to them so that call doesn't need to come to us. And so that's kind of the approach that we've been trying to take.
Deb, oftentimes in a child welfare case, the parents are working a plan to try, they've lost custody of their children temporarily to the court with the hope that they will be able to regain custody through working programs of anger management and the like. The programs are plentiful, I know. What has been the effect of the virus on the parents' ability to work their programs so as to regain custody of their children?
Yeah, so that's a great question, because one of the other effects that we saw very quickly was the impact on providers to be able to serve families. And so whether that was behavioral health providers or other kinds of providers, and even the function of the court was affected by the pandemic. And so you're exactly right that parents who are working through a series of services or activities to try to learn how to be a stronger family clearly were impacted by that. Most of our providers were able to go to some kind of video format, and so we were able to continue to provide some kind of service. But I think we have a lot to learn about the effectiveness of that. In medicine, in the field of medicine, we've used telemedicine especially in rural parts of the state for a number of years. So there's some experience with how good that is or how much that works. But I don't know that anybody's done it in the broad way that's been done during COVID. And so I think we have a lot to learn about under what conditions does a video session or video treatment or a video interaction work just as effectively as face-to-face. So to be determined, I think, what the outcome of some of those plans will be. We've been very interested in trying to really support those families whose children are in foster care, because I don't want them to lose hope during this time. When we're all of us when we're trying to make a change, we need accountability, we need support, we need encouragement. And when we lose any of those pieces, a lot of times it's hard to make a change, whether we're trying to lose weight or whatever it is we're trying to do. We need those factors. And we didn't want to allow this pandemic season to distract those factors from a parent who may have been doing a good job, really working hard to strengthen their family before, and then suddenly loses interaction with their children, services, et cetera. So we've been working hard with our service providers to try to make sure that they stay in contact with parents, that we are staying in contact with parents, and that we're keeping parents in contact with their children, even though it may look a little different right now. Because I just don't want to lose traction on those families being able to return to each other. We've also been working closely with the Administrative Office of the Courts and with local courts to try to ensure that we can do whatever we can to support the ongoing court hearings, so that the actual court side of a child welfare case doesn't slow down either. We would hate to see kids stay in foster care longer than they need to simply because of this virus. What we really want to do is stay focused on helping create strong families and then getting those kids home to their family.
Deb, thank you so much for joining us. I think we have to terminate our meeting today. Mick, can you take us out?
You bet. Deb, and please thank your staff for the wonderful and important work that they are doing on behalf of the citizens of Oklahoma. Kent and I'll have a final word when we get back.
It used to be okay in teachers' lounges. It used to be okay in maternity wards. It was okay in sporting arenas, college campuses, and office spaces. But now that we understand the deadly dangers of secondhand smoke, that's not okay anymore. So why is it okay that thousands of employees are exposed to it every day at work? Bottom line, it's not okay. Let's protect hardworking Oklahomans. Join the fight at stopswithme.com.
All children deserve a life of hope and love, but sometimes they experience a life of pain, neglect, and abuse.
When that happens, each child deserves all the quality assistance and representation that can be offered in our legal system. For more information, call 23-CHILD.
Oklahoma Lawyers for Children. helping to bring hope and love back to the lives of abused children.
You will always be Mom and Dad to me.
We are a very conservative family, and we believe in old-fashioned family values. We have a loving home there, and we love kids, and we have 5, 6 of our own. And but I had no idea we were going to go into adoption, but it's been very gratifying.
You will always be Mom and Dad to me.
The Journal-Record is pleased to be a sponsor of The Verdict. The Journal-Record, since 1903, the best source of Oklahoma business news and legal information.
And welcome back to The Verdict. Kent Meyers and Mick Cornett closing up this show, talking about child welfare.
Well, and it's a great example. And I think a show like this gives the citizens of Oklahoma even more confidence that the programs are running as well as could be expected. She's obviously very committed, very capable, and a great spokesperson for that role.
Well, we have had great child welfare directors in the past, but I don't know that we've ever had, at least in my experience, a pediatrician, somebody with 8 or 10 years of practice as a pediatrician in Oklahoma County, becoming our child welfare director. We're really blessed to have her.
Let me give some website information for visitors or viewers who might be more interested in DHS and the great work that's being done over there. The website is okdhs.org. That's okdhs.org. And we have a website for this television show. You can log on and tell us about a guest you'd like to see, theverdict.tv. For Kent Meyers, I'm going to give a virtual goodbye, and we'll hope to join you next week on another edition of The Verdict.